Hello, good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Minds on Guard, where we are learning how to guard our minds against the manipulations present in the mainstream media, as well as all of those various ways that the people that run the media and the people that direct the media use it to control our thoughts and behaviors toward their desired outcomes for our lives in the world. Recently, we've been taking a look at the concept of postmodernism as an errant philosophy and a really unworkable and illogical thinking system and worldview. We've been digging into some of the particulars about what postmodernism is, a lot of the fallacious reasoning that's present within it. We're going to continue on some more of that tonight. In light of many recent events and what I see actually as a direct corollary to the subject matter of postmodern thought, I want to examine a little bit how this really rotten philosophy contributes to the fracturing and disintegration of a society, such to the point that its youth, our youth, come to the conclusions that life is not precious and that there's nothing of value or worth living for, and to that end, all is hopeless. We've had to deal with a lot of horrific tragedies in the last few months, and I do see that these things are a result of postmodern thinking, at least in part. And actually, in some ways, I think we could put another label on what's happening, and that would be the label of nihilism. One of the pioneers of postmodern thought was a man named Jean Baudrillard. He considered himself a nihilist, and he actually took that to be a positive thing in his life. I wholeheartedly disagree with that conclusion, and I wish to make the case that under a nihilistic framework, we will, as a society, continue to see more and more of the just utterly tragic events of our time, such as school shootings, drug overdoses, and all manner of violence and destruction of human life, the devaluing of human life. The reason that I see this is that these two parallel philosophical frameworks, postmodernism and nihilism, have in essence done away with any conception of intrinsic value and meaning. What was once occupied by a sense of a connection to the divine is now just empty space in our world. What this does is that it creates a negative space. It's not that it's just empty, it is negative space that must be filled in by something. Nature abhors a vacuum. And this creates major problems in a variety of ways. Imagine being brought up in a world where all that you're exposed to is framed in such a way as to reinforce that all of life, every aspect, top to bottom, is a constant struggle simply for power. The news media sells this poisonous viewpoint at all hours of every day. Social media is designed in such a way as to program us to distinguish good and bad based on how popular a thing is or how many likes and followers we have. Facebook uses the term friends, which is a whole extra level of twisted postmodern destruction of meaning. Anyway, in this new virtual digital world, the more you have, the better you are. Your perceived value is determined by your following and the positive or even negative engagement that comes with such things. And because that paradigm is present, whatever value you may have is always in jeopardy of being stripped away from you by something or someone who can command an even larger following and an even more captivating level of engagement. Employ this onto a growing young mind who's dealing with like all kinds of hormonal upheaval and constantly changing inner understandings of themselves and who they are in the world, and a recipe for utter disaster is in the works. The result of this is a guaranteed all-out emotional appeal and pervasive self-centered, ego-driven defense mechanisms, which are just surely going to be ruling a mind that is brought up in this environment. Now, all of this is bad, but it's not a certainty that someone who goes through all of this will turn out to be some cold-hearted killer. However, it certainly sets people on a seriously treacherous road that doesn't take much to push someone toward a level of utter despair. This really is a horrifying scene, and it's what we're witnessing in the world today, at least in the United States. And as bad as this is, the greatest tragedy lies in the destruction of our identities. The postmodernists would have you believe that your identity is to be found in things like your race or your country of origin. A lot of people think it's their sexuality, political beliefs. Some people hang their identity on their vocation or their career. And I bring this up because I have an issue with it, and I want to point out and stress as deeply as I possibly can that these things are not what make us who we are. These things are nothing more than surface-level attributes of our humanity, and as such, they can never truly reach the core level of expressing what identifies us all. They serve purposes for community, and they serve purposes for friendships, romantic relationships, developing meaningful work lives, but they miss the mark when it comes to where we gain our intrinsic value, and as such give us something to hang our hats on as an actual tangible, real identity. That, my friends, can only come from God and our status as imagers of His divine nature. This is a subject that deserves a great deal of study and a deep, deep well of discussion. Many Bible scholars have devoted their whole lives to this one topic alone, and I want to aid them in making the case that it is in this status as imagers of God where we may find the solution to the darkest despair and tragedy that we see happening in our world today. People are lost and they're hurting because they think they can hang on to a fleeting attribute about themselves and attach their deepest core level and sense of value to that. Yet, this fails them time and time again, and what are they left with? That negative space that I mentioned before, which gets filled in by fear, confusion, despair, and rage. And I see that this cycle gets perpetuated via postmodernism, and then we're left with a society that has doomed itself to nihilism and hopelessness. I pray that all people who are struggling to know that their lives have meaning and that they're valuable will be touched by the Holy Spirit of God and be shown that they can ground themselves in His promises and His truth. He has created us in His image, and He loves us. He will not abandon those who seek after Him, and He will heal the sickness that is running throughout our society. I pray this for you, I pray this for me, and all of those that are hurting out in the world. So I know that this took a little bit of a turn away from a more technical examination of postmodernism, but I feel that this was important to discuss as we need solutions to these problems. Our solutions lie in our ability to surrender our wills and our egos to the all-powerful, all-creative, all-encompassing, omnipresent being known as God, Yahweh. his son Christ has sacrificed for us so that we may live and have life. I present this in a spirit of love and in a spirit of healing and reconciliation of our souls, so that we might start to heal and create, or at least help move creation into a healthier, less chaotic and violent space. Ultimately, God's will be done, and I will continue to pray for peace and that people learn to surrender and seek Him through these troubled and dark times. We'll pick back up with some more technical stuff in the next videos, and we'll start diving back into some news articles so that we can start employing some of the things we've been talking about moving forward. Until then, I hope you all stay safe, stay diligent, and stay vigilant with your minds on guard.